Hello, and welcome to Subjective Cinema, the podcast where I talk with friends about our favorite movies, which are the third greatest thing in the world after true love and a good mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. I am your host and out-of-work miracle worker, Anna Dodds, and today I am talking with Shelby Turner about The Princess Bride. So hello, Shelby. How are you?
I'm doing as well as can be expected.
I've seen worse.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a published author, is what I am supposed to say to sound fancy. But right now, I'm also an unemployed, not miracle worker. I wish I could cover pills and chocolate and sell them for 65 shillings or whatever, but
yeah, that would probably sell pretty well right now.
Yeah, it's yet to happen, but that's okay. Wow, I don't know. Lead the way. I'm very bad at this.
That is A-okay. I'm very glad to have you here. I mean, you're a film compadre of mine, which is to say we went to any film classes together and have that shared, which is not a quality that is shared by several of my guests. So,
well, we were like in 2 screenwriting classes together, right?
Yes. Was it 2? Were you in 2 of them? Yes. You did playwriting and sitcoms?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 screenwriting and 1 basic film course. It was like intro to film, right? Was the one you were in? Yeah.
It was the first, very beginning. But I'll take it.
Hey, it's a good time. It is what my outline for this podcast is based off of. So you're coming to this fully informed.
Woo! Great.
Have you seen any good movies lately?
I have, actually. Around this time last week, I was on a real movie kick, or it was Sunday. I watched The Shape of Water in the morning with my family. I'd never seen it before. And then that night, by myself in the dark, I watched Pan's Labyrinth in Spanish, which was kind of hard, but I got through it, and I cried. And I was scared in the dark by myself. It was fine. It was a good time.
I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilda to frame for it. I'm swamped.
Man, you've been just partying then.
Sort of, I guess. I don't know. It's that and sewing stuff, which has become my quarantine obsession, my social distancing obsession.
The Princess Bride is a 1987 American fantasy adventure comedy film, because how many genres can you cram into one film? Directed and co-produced by Rob Reiner, starring Carrie Elwes, Robin Wright, Mandy Patinkin, Chris Sarandon, Wallace Shawn, Andre the Giant, and Christopher Guest, among others, presumably, but those are the big ones. Adapted by William Goldman from his 1973 novel of the same name. It tells the story of a farmhand named... Could try that one more time. It tells the story of a farmhand named Wesley and his true love, Princess Buttercup, who he must rescue from the odious Prince Humperdinck. The film preserves the novel's narrative style by presenting the story as a book being read by a grandfather to his sick grandson.
Okay, so I'm both alternately a hopeless and hopeful romantic, depending on the day. And I both absolutely love a good love story, and I love to hate a good love story, But there's this idea of a certain cultural idea of true love, which is touted by every single person in the film as a very noble cause. Miracle Max, his wife Valerie, Humperdinck becomes very upset when Buttercup says, even though you didn't send out the ships, that's fine, he's still going to come for me. And I did write down the quote, and I'm going to read it out because I think it's relevant. The quote is, "You truly love each other, and so you might have been truly happy. Not one couple in a century has that chance, no matter what the storybooks say. So I think no man in the century will suffer as greatly as you will." Calm down, bro.
He got very upset. I know, it's like you have her as a ploy to kill her. Like, why are you so upset?
I think it's because it's challenging his view of reality, of what
Yeah.
makes a meaningful life. This idea that people could truly love each other, and yet it's touted as something very rare. And so I think there's this tension. We have this very idyllic view of the past and of what true love can be, when often I don't know if those are healthy things to think about or to apply to real life. I don't know. I don't know. Is What do you think of true love? Does it exist? Is it the most noble cause? Would
I
you
mean,
give
I'm very gay, so like I'm all for it. I love my partner very much and would happily call it true love. But also like, you know, this is like
Aw.
fantasy magical true love, and so also like I 100% hear you, you know, like love is
I sound
great. The notion of
pathetic.
magical, you know, one and only one true love does get a little icky potentially. I
I mean,
think here it stands in for strong love in general, but also like because we're using magic and over drama and high fantasy, like it needs to be very special because it's practically the film's MacGuffin, like, you know, the sort of central item that can do whatever we need to happen, you know.
bringing in that Hitchcock terminology or
Uh,
whatever. Who
I hate
derived
Hitchcock,
it?
but MacGuffin is very
No,
convenient
we hate
term.
him. Sorry. That's the context from which I know it.
I think that's right.
It's a, you know what? But I'm just like throwing in things here. Goodness, but I sound like the biggest cynic in the world. Also, but I think
That's
it's interesting.
okay. You clearly love this movie deeply, so
I
like
do.
this is just a way to talk about it. Like I don't think you're over here like it actually sucks. You're just like,
No,
huh, that's notable and that's
something to
valid as hell.
question.
Yeah.
Um, because I think Buttercup, there are several instances in which the movie's message seems to be that true love should not be sacrificed no matter what. Buttercup seems to make a very noble decision. Oh, this reminds me of something I forgot to say earlier. Buttercup seems to make a very noble decision in saying, if I agree to marry you, will you not hurt him? Which is kind of amazing. She does not like Humperdinck. So this is kind of dubious consent is being granted here. And that's what I'm going to call that. And yet, when they're confronted after the fire swamp, Wesley says, "Death first." And I'm sitting here thinking, do you actually want to die, Wesley? Because it's her actions which, though in kind of a winding way, do allow you to live together. So is this idea of true love and it not being sacrificed healthy? In that instance, I don't think it is. If you would rather die, I don't know. And this idea of only one person can make you happy. Wesley seems somewhat jealous upon you. You were gone for 5 years and you're mad at her?
You were supposed
Like,
to be dead, bro.
honestly, and she says as much. She states her
Yeah.
reasons very plainly, and he's like, not even death can, it can only delay it a little while.
Yeah.
Wesley, I don't know. There is certainly a weight to this. The idea that there would be an afterlife. Either I don't know if that's the subtext that it can only delay it a little bit. Death can only
I think
delay
that's the subtext. Yeah.
that there would be an afterlife of eternal true love. That's a nice thought.
It is.
Yeah.
But also does complicate the notion of like one singular true love because like you love a lot of people because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Weird segue into some thoughts that I have had.
Do
All
it.
of our heroes are driven by or like valorized for some kind of love like that, you know. There is definitely some concerns to be had around the notion of like one true love and like that sort of notion, but also the more broad thesis of the film around just like love good, people lacking love aren't doing so hot, you know, is pretty valid, I would say. And yeah, like, you know, obviously Wesley and Buttercup, that's the number one, like, written on the package. Like, they're each other's true love. It's the point of the movie. It's the most important thing. But also, like, Inigo's vengeance, you know, that violence is considered, by the film at least, more justified because it is driven by love. Like, he loved his father so much he must avenge him. It is still complicated, don't get me wrong. But, like,
Oh,
that is still the way it is presented, for better or worse. And
Mhm.
like Fezzik's just super chill. He's friend to everyone. He fought for charities, you know, like that's kind of his subtext is just like, yeah, everybody's great. I'm gonna take care of everybody. Like, this is good. And then, you know, any like also smaller characters and instances like love is maybe iffy, but you know, Miracle Max is convinced to do a good thing by his wife being like, you dickhead, like get your shit together. And you know, of course, then you can bring it back around to the kid and his granddad and that familial love and history and yada yada yada. And
As you
yeah, I
wish.
think that's one of the attempts at a point in this movie is that, you know, for all the complications of vengeance as a notion and one true love as a notion, also like love good is kind of one of the main theses of the film, and like that's pretty chill, even if
That
it's
is,
in complicated ways.
that's good. The film does indeed, the last line is the young boy, they finish and he requests that his grandfather return the next day and read it to him again. And he says, the grandfather, as you wish. He turns out the light and he walks away, fade to black. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
But I think you've pointed out an interesting binary too. What separates the two male heroes from the two male villains is their motives. Selfish, self-centered, self-oriented motives for one's own ambition or pleasure just because you enjoy pain, yikes, versus, see, the vengeance, I see what you're saying. That's kind of what's dangerous about it, though. Revenge, it wouldn't be vengeance if it wasn't justified. So there's always, it's reasonable, it's understandable. That's a good point, though, yes. But the binary is those who have love and who are motivated by love, and those who are not motivated by love.
The mise-en-scène is great fun.
It is. What were your thoughts?
It's mostly just very impressive. This is where I put my initial like, oh shit, wait, rich people bad is an undercurrent of this movie. Is essentially I was looking at Vizzini's costuming compared to Fezzik and Inigo, and Vizzini is so much more complex. Like he's clearly the rich one out of the three of them, and is also the worst one. And that's just, you know, mise-en-scène conveys wealth more quickly than dialogue in a lot of ways, and so that was where I initially noticed that. But and then, you know, it's practical effects and it's filmed on location for the most part in various areas, and like it looks very nice. It's very convincing is probably the correct word.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about how to divide up a film is always interesting. I noticed that's a really interesting observation with the class. Again, he has like the fur trimmed tunic, Vizzini. I noticed the color red when I was watching this. Color red and the blue and the costuming. I found Humperdinck, when he's first introduced, he's wearing a red, oh my goodness, what do you call that? Vest thing with a skirt.
Tunic?
All of the medieval historians, tunic. Yeah, let's call it tunic. He's wearing a red garment. Just to avoid the issue. A red garment, and it looks like it's velvet. And mise-en-scène. Let me set, design, locale, props, etc. Acting, cinematography, framing. I'll save that for framing. I don't know. This also refers to staging. Yes, mise-en-scène. I'm not out of place. So. With the initial introduction of Humperdinck, he's high on a balcony, and Buttercup is below, and she was once a commoner like you, but I'm sure you will not find her common anymore. She's wearing this sort of pale color, but when she goes out for her ride, her only joy in the day, she's wearing a red dress, which seems to note a certain level of possession he has over her. Red seems in some ways to be Humperdinck's color, and I actually thought going into the film, I remembered the red dress, and I thought, does that have to do with like a virgin whore binary? Red being not something, red having certain connotations. But I stopped thinking that when I watched, because not only is the color red present in wardrobe, when she goes out for that first ride, it's green, the field, and then she goes into the woods and there are lots of red leaves everywhere. And that's where she's accosted by the men who have been hired by Humperdinck. And then later on, when she exits the fire swamp, again, there are red leaves on the ground. And perhaps this is reading into it too much, but it seemed to me where there was red, Humperdinck's influence was present, which is perhaps, you know what, I can support it with evidence. So, you know what, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I find things are usually, a good job has usually been done when you don't notice it. You notice bad jobs.
Yeah.
So the fact that I didn't notice it is great. This is perhaps more of a line of dialogue or for the editor. I did notice Cary Elwes. How do you say his name?
Cary Elwes, yeah.
Elwes. This is like such an unnatural sounding name. It's not a bad name. It's just not one I've said often. Cary Elwes.
I think it's still slightly better than Ewan McGregor. That guy's first name throws me every time.
True. Well, Cary Elwes, his Wesley, he at one point says well, and then a brief quippy line of dialogue in line with his sort of character of being clever and witty and the perfect man, which I would be very nervous if I had to strive to be like him. You know, he says something and I'll be like, well, that wasn't so bad, was it? And then, well, blah, blah, blah. No, blah, blah, blah. And it was just in close succession. I was like, he said well too many times there. One of those wells should have been cut. Too close together. Acted very well, though. Yeah. Didn't notice.
I mean, I think Mandy Patinkin has the most to work with and does the most, possibly, out of everybody. I mean, Andre the Giant is just being himself, is what everyone has always said, you know, like... And again, we go back to our two leads are lovely and doing very, very well for what they are, but what they are is also very bland.
Well,
you know, they're just...
I think you're supposed to be able to pick, you know, like picture yourself as them, so they're blank.
No, they're very intentionally bland, which I think is why it doesn't come off as a problem at all. Like, it's... But also, like, if you're looking at things in detail, you're like, they're just there. Like, they're perfect pretty lady and perfect dashing man.
Yes.
Good job, guys.
There you go.
Yeah.
The what I will say is interesting is I feel like maybe this was wrong to notice this, but does Cini seem to have a bit of a lisp to me at certain points, or like he would had a certain spittle sort of...
I think that's just
slithery sound.
I think
Was
that's
it him?
just him, yeah.
Oh my gosh, can we edit this out? I don't want to be a mean person.
No, that's okay. We might edit it out, but...
If it stays in, that's also okay. It was a certain quality. It wasn't a bad quality. I didn't mind it at all. But I did think it gave a certain sort of emphatic, like I'm spitting these words out. But like good. It was good.
I mean, some of the comedic side characters are really A+. I feel like... I don't even know if it's excellent acting or what it is exactly, but we got to give at least a little bit of a nod to, I believe he's credited as the impressive clergyman.
Yes, amazing credit.
Everybody has to talk about marriage, that blessed arrangement.
That dweem within a dweem.
Yeah.
We have Buttercup when she's first introduced, and when this whole entire interior story, not the frame story, but the story of Buttercup and Wesley, is told, it's Buttercup that's introduced before Wesley. Buttercup is described, she loved to ride, and she's riding, and it's a shot that is very far out, and as we get further into the story, we get closer and closer to the characters, sort of a zoom in slowly, and she's riding from left to right across the screen. She puts her horse up, and she tells Wesley to shine her saddle, and then we really get the shots of their faces. And it's a nice way to go from the exterior world, where the opening shot of the film was this video game. And it's not even, you don't see it at first. You see a black screen, and then you hear the video game noises. And then you see the video game, and then you see the boy playing it. Regarding editing, what I had on the brain was the way it helped move between the frame story and the actual story.
Absolutely.
For instance, the eel, the music is rising, and the eel is getting ready to charge at her, and immediately it switches the shot to the grandfather, and he says, Princess Buttercup does not get eaten at this time.
She does not get eaten by the eels at this time.
Yes, exactly.
The eel doesn't get her.
Exactly. And what? What? The boy's saying what? I'm telling you because you look nervous. And then he says he's not nervous. Again, with his, I was more concerned. But it's interesting because when he starts reading again, you have the visuals of the actors and it goes back. He has to reread a bit. And even though the actors' mouths are moving, it's the grandfather's voice we're hearing, which is an excellent way to navigate that whole entire narration of a book.
Oh, yeah.
In a film. Just really impressive.
And just so charming to have to do the, like, Granddad, you read that already. Like,
yeah,
like speed through it. Like, it's great.
They build up a little rapport as characters there. That relationship is shown with that dynamic. You're right.
There's not a lot going on with sound, I don't think, but also what it does well.
There is a moment which I think sound is used very well.
Do tell.
During the sword fight with Indigo and Wesley, Indigo's sword is flipped away. I think there's probably an effect with that. And Indigo does a little jump using a little crossbar. And then, of course, Wesley follows him. But he does not simply, do the same thing Indigo did. He flings his sword and it makes a sound, a very like wompy sort of sword sound that sounds like it bent a little. And it sticks in the ground. And then he does several flips around the bar and lands and retrieves his sword. And it has a very sort of larger than life quality about it. And it was also fun and kind of, it seemed to point it out both as a bit ridiculous and very, very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's most of how the music works, is to sort of punctuate things without being super noticed. Because, like, that sort of sonic punctuation happens in that scene, happens with, like, the fight with the Count at the end, the getting vengeance. There's a beat in the music for every single stab anybody does. Like, yeah.
Stabbing the ROUSs. Oh, which reminds me,
yeah.
Inigo's acting of the final Count scene, he rises in volume as he gets his second wind, and it's excellent. This is the sort of film that I wish I could find more often to watch with my family. I find it very difficult finding something that appeals to everybody. This definitely has appeal to people with a great many tastes. I also find it an interesting medium through which to examine gender specifically, because I think, I don't know, it's something I've been thinking about more and more recently. And I think the way this film presents it, the different variations of being a man, and really the only one way it presents of being a woman, with a proliferation of these sorts of narratives over a long period of time, one can start to become, or to believe, not even knowing certain messages. I think what I'm saying is that growing up, I think I watched a lot of movies in which a woman's issues were eventually solved by true love. It's not a bad message. Maybe.
But if it's kind of the only message, you got some trouble there.
You need some variety in your diet, So it's a good film, and also both a great encapsulation for good and bad of a great many of the things we assume just existing in the world with gender. That's what I get from the film.
Fair, yeah.
Not very articulately said, but
no, that's good.
Appeals to everybody, a great way of examining your culture and your own ideas about gender. That's final words.